Good evening, Rabbi Isai. We thank everyone who came out tonight for a special shiur, a special presentation on Shalom Bayit. When it comes to Shalom Bayit, to having peace and harmony in one's home, it's not like all or nothing. Some people have good marriages, other people have great marriages. You can have a lot of Shalom Bayit, you can have a lot of peace. Shalom is in Lashon of Shalom. Shleimus, there's no end to Shleimus. There's no end to perfection. Now that you've reached perfection, now you're there, you don't need anything more. Famous Gemara in Bava Metzia tells us that Avram Avinu, who certainly had great Shalom Bayis with his Rebbetzin, Sarah Imenu, but yet the Malachim came and said, Ayeh Sarah Ishtecha. The Gemara says, why did he get that question from the Malachim? To add another component, to add to the beautiful home that Avram and Sarah already have established. Therefore, it's always a good opportunity to talk about Shalom Bayis, learn about it, and certainly when we have with us, once again, we welcome back my Yedid Nefesh, Hagoyin, a Baron Pessin, Talmud Chacham of note, Baal Mechabes Svarim. Soon they're going to have Svarim stores just with Svarim of Reb Pessin. Now they have a whole array of Svarim. Kenai Nara is able to write and put out so many different Svarim. He was Mishamish Gedei Le'olam. He's the Rebbe and forever the Talmud. And that's what it should always be like that. Even when someone's a Rebbe and teaching Torah to so many people, still there's always a Talmud, still always being Mekabel Torah from others. So it's a great schus to have Rabbi Pessin here once again. We look forward to this presentation. Thank you to Rabbi Prupis for all of these various arrangements. Without further ado, we just want to also give a special welcome to our guests from Boreham Wood, England. Hagav Yudabarak Lieberman, Reb Chaim Berman, who are here visiting for the next day or so. We give them a special welcome as well. Okay, without further ado, Reb Pessin.
Always a great plus and a true privilege and joy to meet my old friends, Mitzvah Hashem, to make new ones. It's a great plus to be here, Makom Torah. B'shus, Rosh Kollel, Yedid Nafshi, Arav Matnas Chelko, with Chelek Hey already, and Mitzvah Hashem more coming, and other Sfarim. And I just shared with Rabbi Bifeld that his Torah is spread. There are Vadim in Eretz Yisrael that use his Matnas Chelkoi. I know because I go over that material every Thursday, and they want my okay, but Bifeld doesn't need my Askama. Baruch Hashem. Toiraso machrezes alav b'chutzois. Shimo halech lefanav. Ken yirbu im Hashem. So tonight's topic that was selected was Shalom Bayis, and I must start with a disclaimer. When a person is asked to speak about a certain topic, he is perceived to be an expert on the matter. I'm no expert. It's chatai ani maskir hayom. First of all, there are people here wiser than me, and I'll be happy to get their tips on the topic. People who are married for longer than I am. So what we will try to do is I'll try to share ideas, thoughts, observations from the Torah, from Chazal, and from what it was Zoiche to receive from Gedolei Yisrael, many of them that Baruch Hashem I am Zoiche to have a personal connection with. And the truth is, I'm going to be speaking to myself out loud, if you don't mind. If you want to listen to a private conversation, by all means, it's up to you. So the first thing I'm going to start with is Shalom Bayis min ha-Torah minai. Where do we see, other than what Rabbi Bifrold already shared with us, that's one source, Kedei lechabeva al baila. The angels ask Avram, where's your wife? Oh, she's in the tent. because they wanted to increase the endearment that Avraham Avinu had to Sarah. But other than that, are there any other sources to Shalom Bayis in the Torah? Al Ken Yazov. A person should leave his parents, should cling to his wife, and fight all day long. Who says a Shalom Bayis? We should be together and fight. Don't stop fighting. Who says have to be in peace? You have a source over there?
Yeah, God said it.
God said, cling to her and fight all day long. Are you the basar? Fight. I'm not saying it's not a source, but it's not machriya. Gotta give me a little more. I'm sorry? Isha Zoita. Parshas Naso, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, erase my name. It's a prohibition from the Torah to erase Hashem's name. And yet, to establish Shalom Bayis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, erase my name. But why do you have to go all the way to Bamidbar when there is source much earlier than that? Right after your source, 2 parshas after your source, there's another one. What's that? But why do you have to go so far? The Melos HaTzovis in Shemois. I'm talking in Bereshis. The Torah will start with something. You're saying a pasuk in Parshas Bereshis. I'm saying 2 parshas after that. Before that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Avraham Avinu, you know, when I told Sarah, when she heard that she's going to have a kid, she laughed, saying, oh, but I'm so old. Is that what Sarah Imenu said? What did she really say? My husband, he's ancient. How can he have a kid? He's 100 years old. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was willing to change from the truth. So Gemara in Yevamos Samech Yamud Beis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mishanem Mipnei HaSholom, change from the truth, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu's stamp is Emes, is truth. Shabbos Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph. That's his name, Emes, and yet to establish peace between a husband and a wife, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that's fine. Let's look into this. Avraham Avinu is 99 years old at the time. Sarah Imenu, much younger than him, she's only 90. It's 10 years difference. Avraham Avinu doesn't know that he's 100 years old. When was the last time that he looked in the mirror? Mistama never looked because lo yilbash. Fine. He doesn't know that he's 100 years old. What does that mean? Is it something derogatory to say? By the way, you're 100 years old. He knows it. How do we know that he knows? Because in Perek Yud Zayin, Pasuk Yud Zayin, Avraham Avinu says himself, Haleben mea shonim yivaled ben, can a 100-year-old have a son? So he knows. So what's the problem that Sarah Imenu said, my husband is 100 years old? Sometimes you know something. You know it's true. But to hear it from your spouse, it can cause something, a tiny, perhaps, friction between you and your wife. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, it's worth it for me to change from the truth, chas v'shalom, to avoid any strife. I'm not talking, you're talking about Avraham Avinu, who's going to start, what? You said that I'm 100 years old! Well, how dare you? It's Avraham Avinu. But maybe, in some way, some kind of a friction, tiny little scratch. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, kedai to change from the truth. Why is Yosef called Yosef? We're going later in Chumash Bereshis. Why is Yosef called Yosef? Yosef ben Acher, that's one. And the other? Asaf Hashem Escher Pasi. Rashi explains from the Medrash. When Rachel is by herself, and Yaakov Avinu comes back home after a long day in the Kollel, he's a branch of the Philadelphia community Kollel they had there. And he comes home, and the plate is broken. Who broke it? Who is she going to blame? The angels? The demons? Who is she going to blame? She has to say, I wasn't so careful. But now, Baruch Hashem, there's a little Yosale. It's Yosef. He broke it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gathered my shame. Asaf Hashem Escher Pasi. So now, explains Rashi, I'll be able to say to Yaakov, it's not me, it's Yosef. It's Yosale. Yaakov Avinu is going to get upset at Rachel because something was broken, a plate was broken. So Yaakov is going to say, psh, get out of here. It's Yaakov Avinu. And yet, how sensitive the Torah is to Shalom Bayis. That on the level of the Avos HaKadoshim, Avraham Avinu, Yaakov Avinu, even them, they need to make sure Shalom Bayis, as the Rav Shlita said before, it's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing process, and no one can never reach completion. That's it. I arrived. And therefore, the message from the Avos HaKadoshim, from the Torah, the Parasha Soita that you mentioned, is that we always have to work on it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I'm even willing to change from the laws of the Torah, change from the truth, even though in Mitzvah Ayin Daled in Sefer HaChinuch, Midvar Sheker Tirchak Sefer HaChinuch says, all the halchakos that we have, all the fences that we erect are all rabbinic in nature. The only time that we find that the Torah itself puts a fence around something is this one, Midvar Sheker Tirchak. Distance yourself from lying. It doesn't say over there don't lie. It says distance yourself from lying. And yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, for Shalom Bayis, no problem. Change from the truth. So if Shalom Bayis is so important, how come it didn't make it to the list, 10 Commandments? Maybe it should be there. What do you say? It should be in the 10 Commandments? Guess what? It is! Pilei Ploim. Bamidbar Abba. Medrash. We just read 10 Commandments a few days ago. Loit enough. We normally understood it to mean, don't commit adultery. Says the Medrash, Lo titen af ben ish leishtoi. Don't cause strife, machloikis, between a husband and a wife. So if it's talking about other people, how much more so about ourselves? So yes, it made it to the 10 Commandments. I guess it's pretty chashuv. Soita Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, we learn, famous Chazal, we say it every time there's a Sheva Brachos, anytime one has to speak, to Chassan and Kala, Ish ve'ish azachu, Shechina b'neim. If a man and woman, they married, they do everything right, the Shechina resides in their home. Why? The Gemara explains. Ish is spelled Aleph Yud Shin, and an Isha is spelled Aleph Shin Hey. So if they do everything right, the Yud and the Hey are there, and that's the name of Hashem. And if not, the Shechina removes itself from that house, and all that's left is Esh, fire, Esh Ochaltan, fire consumes them. Many couples think that in order to have real and everlasting Shalom Bayis, there must be a complete identity in both of them. Should fit perfectly. But that's exactly the opposite of what this Gemara is saying. They should not be identical. If they're identical, all you have is Aleph and Shin, Aleph and Shin. Fire and fire doesn't go together. It's only when you have other letters, you have the Yud by the man, you have the Hey by the woman, now HaKadosh Baruch Hu can dwell in that house. It's exactly the opposite of what we think. Only when there's not real perfect comparison between the two, as if, then the Shekhinah says, oh, I want to live here. Because when everything is perfect, Licheoira HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I can't live in this house, it's fire. And we'll soon see why that is. I have a friend who lives in Bnei Brak. And one day, he's downstairs and he sees his neighbor, one of Gedolei Ador, an 85-year-old man. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but you may be able to guess. 85-year-old man coming down and throwing out his garbage. So my friend goes over to him and says, Rebbe, Yasher Koyach, thank you so much. You just taught me such an important lesson. He looks at him, what did I do? He said, you just taught me it's not beneath anyone's dignity to throw out the garbage. And this Adam Gadol, great individual, Torah scholar, he looks at him and he says, what? You just realized that now? What's the first service Kohanim do in Beis Hamikdash every single morning? Kohanim are the most exalted people in Klal Yisrael. The first thing they do every morning is Tumas Hadeshin. What is Tumas Hadeshin? Removing the ashes off the Mizbech. In essence, taking out the garbage. He says to him, you know what your problem is? You don't believe that your house is a mini Beis Hamikdash. Because if you did, and we quoted that Gemara in Sotah Yud Zayin that says, your house in essence can be a dwelling place for the divine, if you truly believed it, you would throw out the garbage before she yells at you. And you would do everything else to make sure this place is in fact a worthy place for the Shekhinah to stay in. There's a guy who once came to the Ponevezher Rav. He says, Rebbe, I can't take it anymore. My house is one big royal mess. My wife, she's so untied. I can't take it anymore. And the Ponevezher Rav tried to help him to maintain Shalom Bayis, and it didn't work. Every single day he came to him for weeks. At the end, the Ponevezher Rav says to him, okay, so what do you want? He says, I want out. I want to get. He says, fine. Come to my house tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll write you the get. The Ponevezher Rav went home that night. He opened the door and he says to the Rebbetzin, we have to go to work. What? We have to go to work. Take the dirty clothes out of the washing machine, scatter them in the entrance to the house. Take some eggs, put them on the table. Take the dirty dishes from the sink, put them all over. The Ponevezher Rav's wife was a very tidy one. She didn't like it. But you have to help. They made their house look a disaster. How much a disaster. 9 o'clock sharp. Shalom Aleichem. Oh, Shalom Aleichem, you came for the get. Coming in. There's stinky shoes right at the entrance. There's clothes. There's dishes. The place looks a mess. So this guy says to the Ponevezher Rav, can I ask you something? Yeah. How can you live like this? What do you mean, live like what? How can you live like this? This is terrible. Says, what are you talking about? This mess, it's worse than my house. So the Ponevezher Rav says to him, oh, so according to your svara, I should actually get divorced from my wife. You should know we're married for over 45 years now. Shalom Bayis says, wait, what do you mean? What is the problem? So this guy says, can I still think about this get idea? He says, yeah, as long as we didn't sign, there's no get. He says, okay. The Ponevezher Rav is still waiting for this guy to come back. You have to be creative to prevent a get. What happened as a result of this story? Did this guy's wife become much cleaner and more neat, and the house is now in perfect shape? No. So what happened? It seems that we tend to measure our happiness, or lack of, based on other people's standards. And if he seems much more successful than me, in that house it seems that there's always simcha, they're always smiling, everything is great, so look where I am. How can I be happy? But if we stop measuring our success, our simcha, our happiness, based on others, there's a chance that we'll be happy. Once this guy found out that he's not the only one who's suffering, it could be that it could work out. That's why he never came back. It's a strange thing in halacha. You can't see from here, but when you come into every Jewish home, Ashkenazi, the mezuzos are tilted. That's a very strange thing. The Machloikis, Rashi, Rambam, and Rabbeinu Tam. Rashi maintains the mezuzah should be upright. Rabbeinu Tam says no, should be lying down. The Rambam writes in Yoreh Deah, a strange thing. So we do a compromise. Where do we ever find that we do a compromise in halacha? There's so many arguments, so many different opinions. This one says treif, it's not kosher, and the other one says kosher lemehadrin. This one says disqualified, this person says no, this is fine. This is impure, this is pure. We always have different opinions, and we have rules. How to paskin, we know how to rule what the halacha is. And here suddenly we find a compromise in halacha. Instead of doing it this way or this way, we do it this way. The great ethical masters explain, the mezuzah is the first thing you meet when you come into the house. And that's the message to anyone who comes into the house, primarily the husband and wife. In this house, there's a compromise. When you come into the house and the first thing you see is a compromise, and you actually kiss that compromise, saying, yes, it's all about compromise, and I'm in. It's a great chance for Shalom Bayit's success in that house. In Ksubis Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph we learn, Keitzad me'agdim lifnei hakala. Are you allowed to lie to the chassan who, for whatever reason, took a kala who was, wow, you look at us like, what was he thinking? And Beis Shammai says, no. Kala kemoishi. Can't lie, can't change from the truth. And Beis Hillel say, and we paskin like Beis Hillel. You can say to the chassan, kala nava chasura, what a gorgeous. Where'd you get this kala? It's unbelievable. Character traits, refined. And she is not. Now, I really don't know what he was thinking, marrying this lady. But Chazal say, even if she is blind, and even if she is limping, you can say, wow, what a kala you got. What's the reason he married her? Because for whatever reason, he found some positive points that he likes. And we all found those points. That's why we married our wives. But for whatever reason, 5, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, suddenly, we don't see them. Those points are still there. Those character traits are still there. But we tend to look at the other things, at the negative side. Shlomo HaMelech said a pasuk. In Kollel Perek Tes, pasuk Tes, Shlomo HaMelech says a pasuk which grammatically doesn't work. Re'eh chaim im isha asher ahavta. Seek life with a woman whom you love. Re'eh chaim. What is re'eh? What tense is that? What tense is that? Present. Or a command form. Re'eh. Future. You should seek life with a woman who asher ahavta. What is ahavta? Past tense. Why can't you be consistent? I think that's the secret. Shlomo HaMelech says, if you want to have a good life, re'eh chaim, you want to be with that same woman, how do you do that? Re'eh chaim im isha, with that woman, asher ahavta, that you loved in the past. You remember when you were dating and you looked all of those great positive points and you were so swept away. Wow! It's still there. Try to concentrate and focus on those points, says Shlomo HaMelech, and then now, in the present and in the future, you will have a great life. Because Asher Ahavta, those points that you loved are still there. We just, for whatever reason, decide not to look at them. But they are still there. The Gemara Kiddushin Daf Ayin says 4 remarkable words. Kol hapoisel bemumoy poisel. One who disqualifies others, he has to look in the mirror. He actually has that same problem. And the great ethical masters say this is something that can change our lives. Why is she so angry? Why does she yell? Why is she so makpid? Why is she so not tidy? Why is she so, the list goes on and on and on. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu give you that wife? Because kol hapoisel, if you disqualify somebody else and you focus on that and you see, oh, look at that. You have some negia, you have something to do with that character trait as well. It doesn't have to be that you have it on the same level. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wouldn't allow you to see it if it's not something you have to work on. And that's what I said before. That if you're identical, husband and wife are identical, there's no need to be married. Because the whole idea of marriage is to perfect yourself, to better yourself, to work on yourself. And if everything is perfect at all times, and there's nothing for you to work on because you think just like her, and everything, so why should you become better? So if there's something that really upsets you, that means there's something that you really have to correct. And again, it doesn't have to be on the same scale. But in some point, there is something that you are lacking in as well. Remember, I said before, I'm speaking to myself out loud. But it's something we all have to share. Think about those things that bother you. Two people go outside, Reuven and Shimon. And Reuven says to Shimon, his friend, you see Levi? He's so arrogant. And Shimon says, I don't think he's arrogant. Happens all the time. What's the truth? Is Levi arrogant or not? There can only be one truth. Why is it that Shimon doesn't see it? Why is it that Reuven sees it? It bothers him so much. Because Reuven also has an issue with arrogance. Again, not necessarily the same level that Levi has, but Reuven is bothered by it because it's something that he has a problem with. Shimon apparently is not. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows Reuven, Levi in that magnifying glass so he can work on himself. This is the opposite of what we always think. She has to fix herself. No, I have to fix myself. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed me to see her in that way. And if that's the case, every time your wife upsets you, she deserves a gift. Because she's your best teacher. She just showed you what you have to work on. You give gifts to your kids' Rebbe's, Purim, Chanukah, whenever the minhag is here. She's also a teacher. She teaches you what to do, and she teaches you what not to do. She also teaches you what you have to work on. She's a great teacher. Listen to a language of Reb Chaim Vital. Reb Chaim Vital is the Talmid of the Arizal, all the Torah that we have from the Arizal. Listen to a language, it's startling. When a person goes upstairs after at least 120, Lo yizkeru lo kol hachesed she'asa im acherim. They will not remember all the chesed. He has a big tzedakah fund, a big mach. They will not remember it upstairs when he gives accounting. Uma shemachriya dinoi, and what's going to tilt the scales in his favor or chas v'shalom the opposite side? Im kas, if he was angry, v'hikpid lelo rachem beveisoy, and he was makpid and he was strict without any mercy in his house, v'hizniach es ishtoi, and he neglected his wife. That's what tilts the scales. The Chaim Vital. Hummus, stringencies in halacha. You want to have stringencies in halacha? Great, but don't impose them on others. There's a guy who came from the States to Eretz Yisrael. Chol HaMoed Pesach. He goes to Rav Steinman Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. Wants to get a bracha, wants to get a blessing, ask him his advice, and he goes into the house. And if you or Zoichet ever be in Rav Steinman's house, his estate, which is probably, your car is probably twice the size of his house, in the middle of his living room slash study room slash kitchen slash shul slash everything else, there's a big barrel of water. It's very strange. You know, in Eretz Yisrael, some people have this stringency not to drink water from the faucet on Pesach, because most of our water comes from the Kinneret. And some people during Pesach may sit there and eat their pita bread and some crumbs. There is filtration, it's a chumrah, it's a stringency, but some people conduct themselves in that manner. So he saw this gigantic barrel of water in the middle of the living room. Fine. The B'Shtayman is machmir, it's a stringency in Pesach. The following year, again, he goes to Israel in Pesach, and he goes to Chol HaMoed to get a bracha from Reb Steinman. This time the barrel is not there. That's strange. If you hold from this stringency, so why is it not here now? And if you don't hold from it, so why was it here last year? Very uncomfortable to ask this, so he didn't say anything. He kept coming every single year. For 20 years, no barrel. So there was the barrel of water 20 years ago, and then a streak of 20 years, no barrel of water. The 21st year he comes back, oh, Baruch habo, the barrel is back. This was already too much. This is so strange. So he says to Reb Shlomo Rebbe, can I ask a personal question? Yeah. What's up with the barrel of water? Do you hold from this stringency or not? And Reb Shlomo said, when were you here last? When you saw, 21 years ago. Wow. 21 years ago, my wife accidentally in the middle of Pesach, used water from the faucet in her cooking. And she came to me and says, "Oh, name, don't ask! I fed you chametz on Pesach! I'm so sorry, I fed you chametz on Pesach!" And I said to her, "No, Tamar was her name. Tamar, it was just a chametz. Seriously, it's not chametz, don't worry about it." No, I know I fed you chametz on Pesach. I can't believe it. What should I do? And he says there was no way to explain to her. She wasn't getting it. That's just a chumrah, it's a stringency. So I decided to prove it to her. And for the next year, I took the barrel away. So she'll see it's really just a stringency, and you can use the water coming from the faucet. And I kept it going like that for 20 years. But last year, my wife passed away. He says to him, "So now I can have the stringency back." Ay. You want to have hummus? Excellent. But don't impose them on others. Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach once came to the yeshiva so upset. He was talking to Bochum and he said, it was Shabbos, and I just came and I saw this guy from yeshiva, married, and he's walking with his wife, and he doesn't carry on Shabbos. Chas v'sholom. Maybe there's some kind of a problem with the Eruv. So his wife schleps everything for her. Is there any difference between a man and a woman in Hilchos Shabbos? If Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said, this guy, he wants to go to Gan Eden. And he doesn't care where his wife is going. What is she, your Shabbos guy? You want hummus, great. But don't impose them on others. There is a plague out there. It's called divorce. When we grew up, nobody got divorced. It's something you didn't talk about. Today people go into marriage with already agreements. How are we going to divide it? No, I hope it works out. I hope it works out. But if it doesn't? One of the reasons, obviously many reasons, I think we are living in a disposable generation. Don't raise your hands. But when you have not a 25 family, 5 families, 25 people, one extra person on your Shabbos table, 2 people, are you still using your china? That's too much, right? Disposables. When something is broken, do you go to fix it? A toaster oven, a mic, you throw it out. It doesn't work out, we'll get a new one. It doesn't work out with this wife, we'll get a new one. It's the mentality that we have, the disposable generation. Listen to a Michtav Meliyahu, Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler, Chelik Aleph, when he talks about Kuntres HaChesed. Listen to our language. וכך אני אומר תמיד לזוג בעת שמחת כלול לא סיים. And this is something that I always say to a couple when they're getting married. היזהרו יקרים, be careful my dear. שתמיד תשאפו להשביע נחס זה לזה. Make sure that you always strive to give the other נחס. כאשר תרגישו בכם בשעה זו. Just like the intense feeling that you have right now, that you just want to make her happy. She just wants to make you happy. ודעו, and know. אשר ברגע שתתחילו לדרוש דרישות זה מזו, the minute you start demanding different things from each other, הנה כבר אושרכם מכאן והלאה. You've just lost your happiness. It's gone. It's out the window. אבל הקשר הטוב בין איש ואשתו, the good relationship between a man, husband and a wife, will reach, יהיה כאשר יגיעו שניהם למעלס הנתינה, when they are both a giver. When they both want to give, אז אהבתם לא תיפסק, then their love will not cease. וחייהם ימלאו אושר ונחס, and their life will be filled of simcha and נחס. כל ימיהם אשר יחיו עלי אדמוס, their entire life will just be a journey of simcha. The Michtav Meliyahu explains, love is to give, not to receive. To give is not a product of love. It's the source. Which means if you really want to love someone, you have to give. and you are in a relationship because you at least once loved your spouse, and we stumble, we wanted to continue. And the secret is to give, and to give, and to give. Aye, but you're upset. Did you see what she said to me? So go out and buy her a gift. What's the proof? Our kids. Why do we love our kids? Because we constantly shower them with more and more and more. And not always are all our kids so cooperative. And sometimes they are rebelling a little against us. Not always do they listen to us 100%, and yet, oh, it's my kid. It's my kid. So you constantly shower them with more gifts, and you buy them more, and the more you buy and the more you give, the more you love. It's not limited only to kids. Anytime you're in a relationship, if you give, you will love. Giving is the source, it's not the product. Giving is the opposite of being selfish. That's why today the average family size is very, very small, because we're thinking about ourselves. What can I get from it? Instead of thinking, what can I give to it? It seems that we lack hachana, preparation. Would you dare go on a plane if the pilot admits, I never took any flying lessons, not even 1 hour? You gotta be crazy. What's harder, to fly a plane or to maintain Shalom Bayit in the house? For sure, to fly a plane is much easier. How do I know? Statistics. 50% of marriages fail. Baruch Hashem, 50% of planes do not crash. Any honest pilot will tell you it's much harder to steer the Shalom Bayit and to navigate that than to navigate and to get his plane to land. So why does it only have to be a time that we're dating? Back then, Shana Rishona, during the first year, it's an ongoing journey. It's a Gemara in Bab Metzia Nuntes Amud Aleph. The Gemara darshans a pasuk from Vayikra, Velo soinu ish es hamisoy. Don't wrong your friend. Don't wrong your fellow. Ish es hamisoy. That's how we normally understand it. Comes the Ritva. Ritva, Rishonim kemalachim, angels. Ritva. He says, who is this person that's always with you? Im she'itcha b'mitzvahs. That's the language of the Gemara. The one who's with you. From like you, keeps mitzvahs. That's what we normally thought. Says the Ritva, who's that person? Im she'itcha b'mitzvahs. The one who is with you. That's your wife. How does he know? Because the letters she'itcha are the letters ishtecha, your wife. The Gemara said it already. Don't wrong, not your fellow. Don't wrong your wife. She's the one who's always with you. And it makes sense what the Ritva says, because there are other directives on that page that talks about one's wife. A person should be very, very careful, the Gemara says, not to cause his wife to cry. It's on the same page, Nuntes Amud Aleph. Because she cries a little faster than we do. And if she cries, ooh, dangerous stuff. It also makes sense financially. On the same page we learn, Okiru nashayhu, honor, respect your wife. Today, what's going to happen to you if you do that? You're going to become rich. Rich! So if it wasn't for anything else, just to see the difference in your bank statement, it's kedai. Before I got married, I was living in New York. This older fellow, I think at the time he was close to 80. He came to me and said, young man, he was friendly with me from the shul. He says, I think I have the secret for success. Can I share it with you? I said, sure. I'm always ready to learn something from somebody who's older and wiser and has tips for me. He says, look, Baruch Hashem, I have Shalom Bayit, fantastic Shalom Bayit. It says many, many years, close to 60 years already. And the secret is this. Every morning when you wake up, you look at your wife and you say, honey, I love you, you're beautiful, and I'm sorry. That's it. He says, that doesn't make a difference if you do something last night. You don't think, you say, I'm sorry. It works. Does the husband have to help his wife at home? Sure, we all can say, yes. We need documentations. We need sources. Does the husband have to help his wife? It's clear to you that he has to. Anyone happens to have share some kind of a documentation? Any sources? And I'm not picky, I take everything. I'm sorry? Shh, you're sending us to the Riva. I wasn't thinking about it. You're sending to the Riva. Riva is one of the Bali Atosfos. Gewaldige source. What he's saying is, when Reuven was born, she named him Reuven. The Torah explains why. When Shimon was born, Leah named him Shimon. Kishama Hashem Be'ori. The Torah explains why. When Levi was born, the Torah says she called him Levi. Hapam yilav ishi Eli. Now my husband will accompany me. Comes the Riva. Riva is from Bali Atosfos, and he says, why now? Now my husband will accompany me. Yeah, because when Reuven was born, I was holding him in my right hand. Shimon came, so I had another arm. But now what am I supposed to do? Put him on my head? Now Levi comes, my husband is forced to help me. That only works when you have the third kid. What about the first and the second? And what about if you have somebody helping in the house? Do you have to help your wife? How many aliyos do we have on Yontif? We're reading the Torah, we call 7 people up on Shabbos, right? Yom Kippur, how many people we call? 6. Yom Tiv? 5. So Gemara and Megillah Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, and why 5? Why do you call 7 on Shabbos, and on Monday and Thursday you only call 3 people up? Because people are busy, they have to go back to the Kollel. Some people maybe even go to work. Shabbos, nobody works, this is the thing. So you call 7 people. So why in Yom Tiv you only call 5? Yom Tif, nobody works. There's no Kollel. Kollel here, should be. So why not call 7 people just like a Shabbos? What's the problem? Says the Gemara, because on Yom Tif, we come in late to shul and we leave early. Because you have to prepare the Suda Yom Tif. Shabbos, you can't prepare a Suda. Everything is prepared from Friday. So there's no problem. Yom Tif, you're allowed to cook, you're allowed to bake on Yom Tif itself. So remember, you're busy. Asks the Yaivitz over there, Megillah Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. What does that have to do with the husband? In Ksubis Nun Tes, we learn that one of the chores of the wife is to do the kitchen work. She is the one cooking and baking. What does that have to do with the husband? Because you have to prepare the meal for Yom Tov. So we only call 5 people up, but it has nothing to do with the husband, says the Yaivitz, because the husband has to help his wife. If she's in the kitchen, in fact, baking, who's going to watch the kids even when there's 1 or 2 kids? How much more so than 3 or more? Says the Yaivitz, you see from here a source, the Yaivitz, you see from here a source that the husband must help his wife. And one of the things it could be that he can help her with is to set the table on Friday. I checked with the poskim. It's possible that the husband is allowed to do this. Why am I giving this as an example? So many homes. 5 minutes before Shabbos, the husband sees that the table is not set. Again! I told you I want it ready an hour before! Or she yells at him. The Moire Be'etzba, that's the Chido, writes, and we know this from experience, that the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, it's the same thing, works extra hard on Friday, very close to Shabbos. Comes the Ateres Tzvi and says, preparing your Shabbos table before Chatzos, earlier than midday on Friday, removes the Sitra Achra from the house, removes the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, the strife, the machlokes, the contention from your house. Reb Chetzkel Abramsky told a story about the Ridbaz. The Ridbaz was the Rebbe in Slutsk, then he moved to Chicago, and then he was the Rav in Tzfat, about 100 years ago. And he was sitting with his Talmidim, and he felt very bad. And suddenly his eyes closed, and basically, he was gone. And the Talmidim saw, he left this world. And 5 minutes later, suddenly he woke up and he was way with us. So Talmidim said, Rebbe, what happened? And he said, my neshama went up there. and things didn't look good for me. The Ritbaz learned Torah from the Tchak. It's known that his father sold the only little oven that they had, the heating element that they had back there in Europe, and it was freezing cold just to be able to pay his melamed, his teacher, so he can learn Torah. The Ritbaz wrote a perush on the entire Yerushalmi, and they put his mitzvahs on the scale, and it didn't look good. From every mitzvah that we do, a malach, an angel, is created. And it wasn't enough from all the mitzvahs that he did, until an angel came. The angel that was created from the fact that the Ritbaz himself used to set the table every single Friday, early morning. And that tilted the scales in his favor, and they said, okay, you can come down and continue to live. But not only that, you know the geschmack feeling you have when you go into the dining room, come into your house Friday morning, and the house has an environment, an atmosphere, an air, a smell, a kedusha of Shabbos already from Friday morning. It changes everything, and not always is it possible. Some people only have one table, for whatever reason, not always is it possible, but when it is possible. And that's just an example. Think about those things that cause one, Mishtaman out of this crowd, to fight Erev Shabbos 5 minutes before, half an hour before Shabbos, and try to remove them from the list. Why do we have to give the Satan more ammunition? He has plenty. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for 5,785 years, 5 months, and 21 days. He knows what he's doing. You don't have to support him. Rambam, Issues, Perek Tesvav, Halacha Yud, Tes, and Chaf says, V'chen Tzivu Chachamim. He's quoting the Gemara in Yevamos Samech Beis. Chachamim commanded Sheyeh Adam Mechabed Etz Ishto Yoiser Migufoy. That a husband should honor his wife more so than he honors himself. Ve'oyhava Kigufoy. And he should love her just like he loves himself. And if he has money, Marbe Betoivasa Kefi HaMamoin. Should do great things for her, according to what he has. Ve'lo yatil alea eima yeseya. And chas v'sholom, not to cause her to be afraid of him. V'yediburoi ima benachas, and he should speak calmly. V'lo yiyeh atzev, v'lo yiyeh rogez, and he should not be sad, and he should not be angry. But it's mutual. Continues the Rambam the next halacha, and he says, V'chen tzivu chachamim ala isha. And chachamim commanded the wife as well. Shetiyeh mechabedet es ba'ala beyoiser. She should be honoring her husband exceedingly. ויהיה לו עליה מוירה, ותעשה מעשיה על פיו, ויהיה בעיניה כמוסר המלך. He should be, in her eyes, like a minister or a king. I don't think he's talking about the ministers that we have today. I don't think so. שלמה המלך wrote a pasuk. כמים הפנים לפנים, כן לב האדם לאדם. The same way you look at others, they will look at you. If you look at her like a shmate, she will look at you like a shmate. If you look at her like a queen, she will look at you like a king. If you look at her like a shmate, she is going to do a hidur mitzvah, and you're going to be a shmate with your raisa, with your rabbanon, all are you doing? But if you look at her as a minister or as a queen, she will look at you as melech malchiyah. What is ve'ahavta l'recha kamoicha? You should love your fellow just like you love yourself. You look at the mirror and you say, you know what, I'm not perfect, but you know what? I'm moichel myself. I forgive myself. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty decent. Says the Torah, ve'ahavta l'recha, love your fellow. Who's your fellow? Your wife is also part of Klal Yisrael. You should do the same to her. You're willing to look at yourself and you say, you know, after all, I'm pretty much, I'm okay. I'm moichel myself. So then, you should be moichel her as well. Just like you moichel yourself, be moichel her.
Not yoter, the Rambam says yoter.
That's regarding kavod. The pasuk says, "B'tzedek, tishpot, am yisrael." Judge people favorably. Gemara in Shavuos Lamed Aleph says, we must judge people favorably. I checked before this year with the greatest poskim in our generation. Guess what? It even applies to one's wife. You even have to judge favorably your own wife. It's a chiddush. I know it's a chiddush, but I checked, no one argues. If Shlomo Volby writes A husband and a wife must have hisachadus gemua, a complete unity. How do you achieve it? By transparency. The Chazon Ish writes that when you leave the house, you have to say, I'm going this and this place. I'll be back in this and this time. She has to do the same. And the Chazon Ish uses a language, ve'al ya'alimu ze mize ve'zo mizu, should not hide things. Kiyad yemin u'chiyad tzmon. Normally, when the left hand goes somewhere, the right hand is aware of where the left hand is, and vice versa. That's how complete unity is achieved. That's a degree that we have to aspire to. Heard of Reb Shlomo Lawrence? Reb Shlomo Lawrence was an Askan in Eretz Yisrael. He was a Knesset member for many, many years. He was also a Shlucha de Rabbanon. Chazon Ish used to send him to all kinds of missions in Israel and throughout the world. So once Reb Shlomo Lawrence comes to the Chazon Ish, and the Chazon Ish says to him, I want you to go to this and this country on a mission for Kollel Yisrael, very important. And Reb Shlomo Lawrence says to him, Rebbe, I don't think I can. Why can't you go? He says, the Rebbe knows I'm a mourner. I'm Bavelus. Where you're sending me, there's no Kaddish. There's not going to be a minyan here. There's not going to be a minyan on the plane. There's not going to be a minyan where I'm going to be. I don't think I can go. And the Chazon Ish says to him, you worried about Kaddish? Kaddish does great things to the neshama of the one who departed. But what I'm sending you to do is as equal, maybe better. What are you worried about the Kaddish? You're worried about the Kaddish. Don't worry about it. I'm giving you something better than a Kaddish. You're going on a mission for Kollel Yisrael. Oh, okay, fine. But Chazon Ish says to him, but you can't go unless your wife gives you permission. That's the right prioritization. You worried about Kaddish? I have something better for you. But you can't leave if your wife says no. And Moshe Shmuel Shapira was going to a wedding. One of his Talmidim came to the house to pick him up. He goes into the house and Shapira is already ready. He's dressed, everything's ready to go. He's sitting in the living room because his wife is still not ready. Mistama, you're not familiar with anything like that. But the wife, she's not ready. So they're sitting for a few minutes. And then the wife, Rebbetzin, she yells to him, Moshe, can you wait for me a few more minutes? I'm still not ready. Moshe Shmuel Shapira says to Rebbetzin, if you're not ready, it's not that we're waiting for you. It means that it's still not the time to leave the house. Reb Nissim Karelitz was asked, Nissim Karelitz, the poisek of the generation, halachic ruler, what's the advice to affect the wife when she's tense, when she's sensitive? And Reb Nissim said, it's always about honor, kavod. The more you shower her with compliments, the less she'll have what to complain about. The less she'll find what to complain about, the less she will look to find what to complain about. So then Reb Nissim was asked, what's the reason for the ongoing fights at home? And Reb Nissim says the root of all machloikis is kavod, because people think about their own kavod. If you'll only do what you are responsible for and look to shower the other with honor, there's not going to be any fights. And Reb Nissim said, what some people say, listen, the more time we spend at home together, it just causes more machloikis. Reb Nissim said it's not true. Today, after a Corona era, with the Zoom generation, people spend more time at home. They work from home. Listen to a Reb Chaim Volozhin. Reb Chaim Volozhin, Talmid of the Gaon. In Ruach Avos, that is his commentary on Pirkei Avos, in Perek Vav, Mishnah Aleph. And Reb Chaim Volozhin writes, I'm quoting, Ish ve'ishtoi nikraim re'im ahuvim. They are called beloved friends. Why is that? Says Reb Chaim Volozhin, shekol zman shem yoiser beyachad, the more time they spend together, yoiser ahava mischazekes b'neihem, more does the love increase between them. So it is possible. When? How? When you look to shower the other with honor, and don't look for your own. So then Reb Nissim was asked, how much do I have to go listening to my wife? My wife wants to go to her parents for Shabbos. It's very difficult. Schlepping with all the kids. I like my shul and I like my this and how much? And Reb Nissim Karelitz Zatzal said 4 words. Kedai leachmir b'shlom bayis. It's kedai to be stringent about shlom bayis. There was a father who used to insult his wife all the time, used to yell at her. How much disgusting. So one day, Erev Shabbos, the wife already lit the candles for Shabbos, but she didn't have time to set the table. The husband was yelling, nasty things. His son was there. He was so upset hearing this. So his son, smart boy, says to his father, Daddy, why do we have to cover the chalos when you do Kiddush? So his father says to him, bring, the boys can bring. There's prioritization in blessings. Normally you say a blessing over the bread before you say the blessing for the wine. But in Kiddush we switch things around and we say the blessing on the wine before the bread. So the bread will be embarrassed. It will see its shame. So in order to recover the challah, so the bread should not see its shame. So his son says to him, so the challah is not allowed to see its shame, but mommy is. But my mother is allowed to see a shame. I'm not sure halachically he was allowed to say it in that matter. I'm not sure. We're not discussing that. There's a difference here. There's a Gemara in Soita Daf Mem Beis and Hednik of Gimel. There's 4 groups of people that after they leave this world, after 120 at least, they will not be zoiche. They will not merit to see Pnei Shechina. The group of scoffers, they make fun of everything. A group of liars, a group of Baalei Loshon Hara, and a group of Chanefim, flatterers. Flattery is very bad. And yet, Oitzar Midrashim says, sometimes some people are allowed to flatter other people. You're allowed to become a Chanef. You're allowed to do so to your Rebbe when you don't understand exactly what he said and you want to hear it again and again and again until it's going to be very clear. You're allowed to say, you're the greatest Rebbe. I never met any Rosh Kollel like you. You're allowed to say this. You're also allowed to be machnif to your creditor because otherwise he knocks on your door and your life is not a life. And one is also allowed to do so to his wife. That's the language of the Medrash. See to what extent we go. The worst midah in the world is kas, anger. Where does anger come from? Gaiva. There was a husband who had this very bad character trait. He once told his wife, I don't think your mother's food is kosher. Don't ever dare bring food from her. Don't ever dare bring anything from her. One winter, Friday, short Friday, there's no time with the kids and everything. And the wife wasn't able to get the cholent ready before Shabbos. Her husband already went to shul. So she ran over to her mother and she took a cholent pot and she brought it and she put it on the hot plate. Husband comes home and he has this very sensitive radar for these things and he looks at her. That pot is not ours. That's your mother's! You brought food from your mother? I told you! Know what he did? He went to the fridge. He took out a bottle of milk. He poured it into a cholent pot. The wife left the house. She says, I'm not willing to live with a person who transgresses 3 major things. Prohibitions from the Torah. He cooked on Shabbos. He cooked meat and milk together. And he doesn't care about Baal Tashchis. Don't destroy things. I cannot live with a person who disregards the Torah's directives. 3 major Torah prohibitions. Aboisai, we have to do acrobatics in halacha. be extremely flexible to try and help this couple. Is there a way to help this couple, or is she right? Let me say he transgressed. Let's start with the first one. She says he cooked on Shabbos. Did he cook on Shabbos? He didn't cook on Shabbos? Boiling cholent, according to pasteurization, which is not cooking. He took milk and he poured it into a cholent and it's cooking now. What do you mean? How is it not cooking? Why is it not cooking? If we say pasteurization is not cooking, why is it not cooking? You're saying it's not cooking?
It's a hot fire. It's a hot consideration.
The cholent is boiling. You're definitely cooking the milk, and you tell me it's not cooking?
Slow nuclear, she's just doing it, it's impossible.
What is he doing? He's mekalkel. He is destroying the cholent. On Shabbos, you're not allowed to destroy things. Called mekalkelin, however, pturin. Not a sudoraisa. The Va'ad Kashrus doesn't recommend it. What's that? That's like a Gemara Shabbos Kufay. A person who gets angry and breaks things should be in your eyes like an idol worshiper. That's what he did, this guy's Meshiggah. But what he did is he wrecked the cholent. Wrecking things on Shabbos is called Kollel mekalkel. Kollel mekalkelin pturin. Again, Va'ad Kashrus doesn't like it. We don't recommend it. But at least we were able to reduce it from a deraisa level, from a Torah level, to only a terabbanon. Fine. Did he cook meat and milk together? It's going to be hard for you to say no for that one. Did he cook meat and milk together? What's that? You're trying to diffuse the question and I want to deal with the question. Actually, from cow's meat. No question about it. And he took cow's milk. Not almond milk. And he poured it inside. Much more than times 60, 100 times. Ah, how big? Bottle of milk. Did he cook meat and milk together? You're saying it? But I want to help this couple. Is there a way to help them? I'm telling you, there's a big amount, a whole bottle of milk. Normally we say tatagava. About 100 years ago, there was a shaila in Berlin about the chocolate. There's a chashash that there's actually meat inside the chocolate. The only way to figure it out is to take it to the lab, to melt the chocolate, and to find out all the different ingredients. But what are you doing when you're melting the chocolate? If there is meat there, you're cooking meat and milk together. Can you do it? If Samson the father said no go, the Meir Shapira, founder of Daf Yomi, said no good. A young genius that Shabinerav, the Doivev Meisharim, came there. Doivev Meisharim, Chelek Aleph, Simin Lamed, and he wants to say yes, you're allowed to. The Torah says 3 times, don't cook meat and milk together. Don't do it. Why? Once, you're not allowed to do it because I don't want you to do it. Even if you're not going to eat, don't do it. Don't cook. Don't derive any benefit and don't eat. And the Doivev Meshorim, a young man, a young genius says, you're allowed to. Where's he getting it from? Says the Doivev Meshorim. Why does the Torah say don't cook meat and milk together? Because you're going to come to eat it. Here, why am I cooking them together? In order not to eat it. If I'm going to find out there's actually some meat inside, I'm not going to eat it. What did he just do? This is called darshanin. Time adeka. I understand the reason for this mitzvah, and I'm telling you, it doesn't apply here. Who gave you the koyach to do this? The Torah Mesharim says, what are you so surprised? The Mishnah LaMelech already writes that the reason for the Torah prohibition of cooking meat and milk together is not to eat it. And we find a similar thing in Pesachim Daf Yud Aleph. You have to check for the chametz erev Pesach. B'dikas chametz. And what if you forgot? In the middle of Chol HaMoed, you wake up, oh, I never did b'dikas chametz. What do you do in the middle of Chol HaMoed? Do you do b'dikas chametz now? You do? Why are you not afraid you're going to come to eat it? If you have some chametz owned by a goy in your house, what do you have to do? Or if you sell your chametz, what do you have to do to the chametz? Can't leave it on the table. Can't leave it exposed. You have to cover it. Why? Because year-round, you eat this chametz. So maybe you're going to come to eat it. So why are you allowing me to do b'dikas chametz and to find chametz on Pesach and you're not afraid that I'm going to come to eat it? Says the Gemara, because the whole reason you're doing b'dikas chametz is for what? Why are you checking for the chametz? In order to burn it if you find it. Says the Torah Mishnah, it's the same thing. Same thing. I'm burning this chocolate, I'm melting it in order to find if there is meat, in order not to eat it. But it's still a gigantic chiddush because you're deciding that you understand the reason for the mitzvah, and you'll decide where to apply this mitzvah or where not. Psh, not such a big pele. But Metzia Daf Tzadi Amud Aleph we learn. The Torah says in Parashat Kiseitze, don't muzzle the ox when it's working. But what if it has diarrhea? Are you allowed to put something to block his mouth from eating? The Torah says, "Lo tachasom shoir bedishoy." Don't muzzle the animal when it's working. But what if it has diarrhea and it's not good for it to eat? Are you allowed to put something there to block it? Sure. Why? Because the whole reason for this mitzvah is tzar balei chayim, not to cause sorrow and pain to the animal. It sees the food in one state and you say no. Now, if you're blocking it, you're actually helping the animal because it's not good for it. It has diarrhea. Says the Shita Mekubetzes over there. He brings from the Rosh. Normally we have a machlokes throughout Shas. Do we dash in time at the car or not? Reb Shimon says, yeah, sure, why not? Reb Yehuda says no. Ba Metzia Kuf Tezvav, we learn about another mitzvah called a widow came to you and borrowed $1,000. You say, lady, and who says you're going to give me back the money? Give me back your garment. Give me your garment as a pawn. You're allowed to do this? The Torah says, don't take from a widow. Says Reb Shimon, it depends. If she is poor, which means she only has one set of clothing, that means every single night you're going to have to go to her and give her back her pajamas. And in the morning you're going to have to go back to her and give her back her day clothing. No good. No good. The neighbors are going to look from the windows. What is this young man doing here? Every single night he comes here. Every single morning. Doesn't look good. But if she is rich, she has a lot of clothing, a lot of sets of garments. What's the problem? You're never going to have to go there. No problem. Reb Yehuda argues over there and says, Reb Yehuda says, no. What's the difference? You can't decide when to apply and when not. Says the Rosh. Shita Mekubetzes brings him in Tabetzia. Tzadi. Here, even Reb Yehuda, who normally does not, is not willing to give reasons for the mitzvahs and to apply that based on that, he will agree that when the animal has diarrhea, no problem. You can muzzle the animal. Why? Because it's so clear. When it's so clear, it's as if the reason itself is mentioned in the Torah. Chiddush. Chazon Ish in Shvi Siman Zayin writes the same thing. He writes about the Ramban who gives reasons to mitzvahs, and he writes, well, Ramban writes a reason for matnos aniyim. It's not really the reason. It's as if the Torah itself said it. When it's so pashut, it's as if the Torah itself says it. Mimele. Back to our question. Don't tell me he cooked meat and milk together. Why did he pour the milk inside the chont? To make sure nobody eats it. It's just like the chocolate in Berlin. So lechoira, at least according to the Dov Meshayim, we can say it's not a deoraisa. Lady, you said you can't live with a person who transmits it. It's not a Torah prohibition what he did. Again, Vada Kashrus does not recommend it. Don't take it elsewhere. Don't recommend this to people. But don't tell me, did it deoraisa. You're saying Baal Tashris. Not a Baal Tashris. Baal Tashris is when you take something that's working and you destroy it. Why? Why not? I feel like it. But when you have a reason, it's not about Tashris. In his crooked mind, he wants to make sure nobody hits this children. That is his Mashiach. But it's not about Tashris because he just did it for a reason. He wants to help save the world from Chas v'Sholom eating something which is not kosher. The husband said, I will never do it again. The wife was appeased. She was willing to go back to him. You see what we're willing to do in halacha. Stretch, not just our imagination, stretch the limits of halacha. And backwards, just in order to maintain shalom bayis. But what if she doesn't listen? She doesn't listen to me! There's a Gemara in Brachos Davav Amud Beis. Kol mi sheyesh bo yiras shomayim dvarav nishmayim. If you have yiras shomayim, fear of heaven, your words will be heard. Don't tell me, but she doesn't listen to me!
Look in the mirror. You have to work on your Yiras Shamayim. I said before, I'm talking to myself out loud. Don't accuse me. Kol mi sheyesh bo yiras shamayim. Anyone who has yiras shamayim, his words will be heard. If one has a problem and he thinks people are not listening to him, it's not limited just to his wife, it's his kids, it's his friends, it's his co-workers, whoever it is, he should go back and work on his yiras shamayim. And there's a flip side of that. Another Gemara, in Pesoita Mem Zayin Amud Beis, Ba'abazal Daf Tzadiches Amud Beis, exactly the opposite. The Gemara says, Hai man de miyaher, one who is arrogant, afilo ain shei beisei lo yimikabel, even his household members will not be willing to accept him. It's the same idea. It's the flip side of it. Shalom Bayit is explosive, especially Fridays, we said. So why don't we have a daven for it? Shmoneh says so many requests. You daven for parnasa, you daven for refuah, you daven for some wisdom. Why don't we ever daven for shalom? Or do we? Do we ever daven for shalom bayis? Abo Yisrael? Sim shalom! Me and my enemies with Hezbollah and Hamas, Yamach Shemam Bezicham. Who told you it's your wife? Yeah. Between fire and water, you should make peace between you and me, us living together, so I shouldn't fight with my chavusa. Who said it's my wife? When do we daven for? I'll call Israel.
She's also part of Israel.
She's part of Israel. What about Shalom Bayis? The boy said we daven for it every single day, 3 times a day. The end of Shmoneh Esrei. 3 magical words. V'nafshi ke'afar lakol tiyeh. 4 words. My soul should be like dirt, like dust. That's the greatest segula for Shalom Bayis Anava. Did you ever see you're walking on some dirt? The dirt looks at you. Excuse me, what do you think you're doing? If you really feel v'nafshi ke'afar lakol tiyeh, you have Shalom Bayis, guaranteed. Lo yisase. There's do's and don'ts. Chas v'sholom, to label, to call names. You always! Why always? Right now you have an issue. So speak about this issue. You always! And the worst thing in the world, you're just like your mother. What's the proof that it's the worst thing in the world? Because if Khalila, she says to you, you're just like your father, you know you're going to blow up. Sgulois! We're in a generation that loves Sgulois. Sgulois for Shalom Bayis. It's a well-known Sgula, Motzei Shabbos, to fold the talis. Source? Unknown. The Mishnah Berurah brings folding the talis Motzei Shabbos, not for the Sgula of Shalom Bayis, just because to be involved in the mitzvah to start the week. But the Talmud Minhagim Makor Yadinim, he does explain this Sgula. The minhag is that the wife buys the talis for her chasa. So when you take the talis in front of her eyes, Motzei Shabbos, and you fold it nicely, you're saying in essence, I love my talis. I'm not looking for a new talis. A new talis means a new kala, because the kala is the one buying the talis for her husband. There was a guy who once went to the Satmar Rebbe. Rebbe, the Shalom Bayis, don't ask. And I do the Segula Motzei Shabbos. He said, what Segula? I fold the talis, Rebbe, before I even do Havdalah. The first thing I do when I come home Motzei Shabbos is I fold the talis so nicely, so neatly. I even take my weekday talis, I take it out of the bag and I fold it again. And meanwhile, so as the Shalom Bayis, don't ask. I don't think this Segula works. And the Satmar Rebbe said to him, you're wrong. The Segula does work. But I have a better Segula for you. If you're already in the business of folding, just roll up your sleeves, fold your sleeves, and wash dishes with your wife Motzei Shabbos. That's going to be better for your Shalom Bayis. There's another Segula. This carries a lot of weight. Some soifer, unknown. Kabbalah ish mipi ish. A husband and a wife should say a few times a day a pasuk from Tehillim 48:3. Mem ches gimel. It's Shir Shel Yom of Monday. Yom Sheni b'Shabbos. Yefenov mesos kol haaretz. Say it a few times a day. It's a Segula for Metzias Chen. for finding favor in the eyes of the spouse. I think a segula from some soifer, which doesn't cost money, I think it's good. You learn one pasuk d'alpeh anyways, you say it every Monday. Tehillim 48:3. It's a segula that Reb Chaim Kanievsky told me. Learn Maseches Gittin, and you won't have to resort to using a get. He also told me learn Perek HaShalom. He told me to tell people to learn Perek HaShalom. Perek HaShalom is in one of the Masechet Ketanos in Shas, Masechet Derech Eretz. It's called Perek HaShalom. And if you learn Perek HaShalom, you will have Imetz Hashem Shalom. One of the greatest Mekubalim in our generation told me to tell people, told me many times, a husband and wife are always together, on a physical level. They eat together, they drive together, they go here, they go there, they're always together, their bodies are together, but when do their souls connect? That's when they learn together. A husband and wife should dedicate some time to learn together. It can be a minute and a half, it can be 3 minutes, it can be once a week, 3 times a week, whatever works for you. Don't worry, she doesn't become your Rebbe. You're not her chavrusa. You spend a little time. It can be Hilchos Shabbos that comes once a week. It can be Hilchos Brachos that comes every single day. It can be Hilchos Lashon Hara, that's all the time. Whatever both of you like. You're not imposing on her what you want. It's what both of you like together. But when one learns with his wife, so now that's complete unity. We said before, His Achdus Gemur, Reb Shlomo Volbi. Complete unity. Because now the bodies and the spirits unite. That's a very important thing. Not less important. Listen to a Das Torah. Listen to a Shulchan Aruch. Arguing, you resolve it. Call the Rav. Ask Das Torah. Baruch Hashem, here understand you have a Das Torah. But Adam Gadol, you have many people, great people here, but I personally know Adam Gadol here. I'm not going to speak about him because my stomach is not going to like it, but I'm not going to point where I'm talking about. No. When you consult with the Kodesh Baruch Hu through his representatives called Talmidei Chachamim, in good hands. What's the proof? Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, married for many years, in the Levaya of his wife, said, Rebbetzin, normally one asks Mechila at this point during the funeral. I am not going to ask Mechila because I have nothing to ask you Mechila for. We always conducted our lives according to Shulchan Aruch, and therefore there's no reason for me to ask Mechila because we always did the right thing. You never upset me and I never upset you. And I know this story for many years. It always bothered me. How is it possible to be in a relationship for so many years? Not talking about a year, 2 years, 5 years. Never to say something, not intentionally. It's unintentionally. How is it possible for so many years? I think the answer is not only what he said, because he everything consulted the Shulchan Aruch, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants for him. It's because they both were the peak of Anava. And when you're so humble, it doesn't make a difference what the other will say, even accidentally. It doesn't make a difference, it doesn't stick. So yes, it's possible for so many years, maybe they said something wrong, but it just went right over their heads because, who am I? V'nafshi ke'afar lakol tiyeh. That's the secret of success. I asked you some tough questions today. I want to ask you an easy one. How long should one gladden his wife's heart? Pasuk mefarish in the Torah. How long? Shana? Achas? 1 year. Shneimar, pasuk in Kisei. כי ייקח איש החדש שלא יצא בצבא ולא יעבור לו בכל דבר נקי יהיה לביתו שנה אחת ושימח את אשתו אשר לקח. If a person marries a wife, he should not go to the army, he should stay home, and he should gladden his wife's heart for a year. That's what the pasuk says? No! Says Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, we don't know how to look at a pasuk. Listen to this, it's remarkable. כי ייקח איש אישה חדשה, if one marries a wife. לא יצא בצבא, don't go to the army. ולא יעבור עליו לכל דבר. נקי יהיה לביתו. He should stay home. All these 3 directives, שנה אחת. Period. Now comes a new directive. ושימח את אשתו אשר לקח, and he should gladden his wife's heart. Oops, no expiration date. If the Torah wanted to tell you have to gladden her for a year, it should put it in the earlier part of the pasuk. It should go like this. כי ייקח איש אישה חדשה. I'm telling you all kinds of instructions. לא יצא בצבא ולא יעבור עליו לכל דבר נקי לביסו ושימח את אשתו. And all this, שנה אחת. But Torah didn't do this. The Torah said the first 3 directives are time limited. Shana echas. And now comes a new instruction. V'simach es ishto asher lakach doesn't say exactly till when. When? Apparently your whole life. Pilei ploy. If Shlomo Zalman Auerbach used to say to young Chassanim, what if tonight you go to sleep and a baskol from Shamayim comes to you and says, I want you to move out of Philadelphia and go to Florida. What would you do tomorrow morning? What would you do? So every young bachol says to Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, what's the shayla? I get up in the morning, I pack my bag, and I say to my Rebbetzin, who's a tzaddikis, we have to go. And of course he's going to accept. And then Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says, that's not the way of Torah. Yaakov Avinu, he also heard, you have to move to Florida. I'm sorry. You have to go back to Moladetcha. You have to go back to your father's land. And what did he do? He called Zachan and Leah. I said, well, listen. You know the leaks that we always have at home? You know it's not so comfortable here? You know how your father's been treating us for years? And also, by the way, Malach told me that we have to go back home. It's true, your wife will accept that she's a tzaddikus, but that's not how you treat her. You have to make everything digestible and pleasurable. There was a guy who was suffering in Shalom Bayis. And he's walking in the streets of Nebak and he says, Reb Steinman Zatzal. And he runs over to him and says, Rebbe, can you please give me a sgula for Shalom Bayis? Yeah. Reb Steinman holds this guy's hand and he starts walking with him. A minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, not saying a word. 4 minutes, 5 minutes, he's walking with him, holding hands. After 5 minutes, he lets go and he starts walking to where he was going. And the guy runs after him. Rebbe, you said you're going to give me a sgula for Shalom Bayis. And Reb Steinman says, I did. Look, we were walking around 5 minutes. Wasn't it nice? And Reb Steinman told me you should know. One needs to know when to be silent and when not to speak. And they're totally different things. And that's the greatest gula for Shalom Bayis. When to be silent. She says something to you. Who says you have to respond? Who says you have to retaliate? And when not to speak, not everything that's over here must go out through here. Look, we were walking around 5 minutes. Wasn't it nice? In Lakewood Yeshiva, there was a Talmid who was the grandson of the Chofetz Chaim. And almost every single morning he was late to davening. The Mashgiach and Rebbe and Kollel, they really didn't like it, but it's the grandson of the Chofetz Chaim. After a while, they sat him down and said, what would your grandfather, the Chofetz Chaim, say about this? Every single morning. So this fellow says, I get up early. I really try to get here on time. But as I'm about to leave the house, and take my bag and everything, and I hear there's a lady there with 5 children. And they're yelling. It's very difficult for her. So I turn around and I go and I help her. And the Mashgiach says, oh, Baruch Hashem. That's fitting to the grandson of the Chofetz Chaim. Is she a divorce? Is she a widow? I'd also like to come and help. She said, no. She's married. I'm her husband. She's my wife. Chesed, 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 and the first chesed starts at home. Just want to finish with a maise, 2 maises, short 2 maises. Chofetz Chaim remarried at the age of close to 70. The first year came Sukkah's time with his second wife. He built the sukkah as he always did. And then he calls his new Rebbetzin, come, see the sukkah. And she comes outside and says, oh, wow, very nice. I actually do think that it would be better if you had the sukkah on the other side of the yard. Okay. Chofetz Chaim breaks down the sukkah and builds it up again on the other side. Rebbetzin, look. She comes outside. But you know, the Maaseh was actually better where it was before. The Chafetz Chaim breaks down the sukkah and rebuilds it again. Who is the Chafetz Chaim? The Chafetz Chaim is a man that for years, decades, never wore shoes with laces because he once made a cheshbon that it takes him 30 seconds to bend down and tie his shoes in the morning, and then in the evening, and he starts making the cheshbon, and throughout a lifetime it's going to be 3.5 hours of bitul Torah. And Neftali Trop was once very, very sick, and they did a public auction in the yeshiva. How many minutes are you willing to donate for his life, and how many minutes? So this guy gave an hour of his life, and this guy half a day, and this guy, and Chafetz Chaim only donated 1 minute. And they said to him, 1 minute? So cheap? He said, you know what 1 minute is, what you can do with it? Do you know what 1 minute is? And this Chafetz Chaim went and broke down the sukkah and rebuilt it 3 times. The Debretziner Rov, the Ber Moshe, somebody once came to him. And he said, Rebbe, I can't take it already. Married a few years, I can't take it, I want to get divorced. Can you do the get? I said, sure. You tried? Yeah. Tried. Yeah, we did. Okay, come to me tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. You have kids? Yeah, we have a 1.5-year-old. Bring him also. They didn't know. It's the first time doing it. They thought it's part of the procedure. You have to bring the kid. 9 o'clock in the morning, they bring him. The Ber Moshe asked him, didn't you say you brought the kid? Yeah, he's outside. Bring him. They bring him in. He said, can I hold him? Sure. They thought this is strange, part of the process. The Ber Moshe puts him on his lap. And he says to him, little kid, you're not going to understand what I'm about to tell you. But oh boy, will you understand it later. Oh boy. What is about to happen here in a few minutes will change your life forever. You are going to become an orphan. The neighbors will be your mother. All the aunts and uncles, they will be your father. Every time the word get will be mentioned throughout your life, everybody's going to look at you. When you're going to learn Maseches Gittin in Cheder, everybody's going to be looking at you. When there's going to be a party, a siyum of a chumash and other siyumim, everybody's going to have their parents there. Not you, because your parents will never want to be in the same room together. One Shabbos you'll spend by your father and you're going to hear nasty things about your mother. The other Shabbos you're going to spend by your mother. You're going to hear disgusting things, terrible things about your father. Your life is going to be Gehenim. No, but don't worry. Kodesh Baruch Hu is an Avi Yesoim. Kodesh Baruch Hu is the father of all orphans. He's going to take care of you. The father and mother, they're startled. The father asks the Rebbe, can we still think about this? Listen, as long as there's nobody signed, no Edim, there's no get yet. You want to discuss it? Yeah, can we discuss it outside? He grabs his kid, he left, and the Ber Moshe is still waiting for him to come back. I once said this over in a shir about Shalom Bayis in Eretz Yisrael. And a guy came to me after the shir, crying. And he said, you should know exactly how you explained this Maaseh is what happened to my kid. And I feel terrible. I said, I'm so sorry. If I would know, I don't know who my crowd is. I have no idea. I'm so sorry. He said, no, what are you sorry for? Baruch Hashem, you said it because people should know that's exactly how it is. Last thing we're finishing with. The Gaon Mivina writes in Mishle, the advantage of humans over animals is chokhmah and tzchok, wisdom and laughter. Which means, I think, if we don't use wisdom and if we don't use laughter, we're no better than animals. And Adam Godel already once said, Atzvus, sadness, is not an avera per se, but it can lead to all the averas in the world. Simcha is not a mitzvah per se, but it can lead to all the mitzvahs in the Torah. It's no different in our homes as well. In Emetz Hashem, we should look to be happy. We should look for simcha. The way to achieve it is the pasuk David HaMelech wrote, Yismach Lev Mevakshei Hashem. Those who seek HaKadosh Baruch Hu will find simcha. And when you seek HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you seek Da'as Torah, and you seek to gladden your wife's heart, you will have, in Emetz Hashem, a long journey, a lifetime of Shalom Bayis. Simcha in the house, and Emetz Hashem Nachas, the Kedusha from all your offspring.